it matters. When you have changes in your practice, particularly with your staff, because there's a financial cost of turnover. And I probably don't have to tell you this, but everybody knows recruitment is not cheap. It costs money. It takes time. You've got to review resumes, check references, there's screening and interviews and all that. And then, of course, there's the production collection costs, because when you lose somebody, something doesn't get done, or something doesn't get done as well or as quickly as it used to. And so there's always some kind of financial cost that hits you right there in the pocketbook. The other thing that we need to consider is the emotional cost of turnover. And there's not a way to put a monetary figure on that, but we know that there's a lot of stress when somebody leaves the practice, intentionally or unintentionally. The extra work, the longer hours for the other staff members who are left behind. Nerves start to fray when people are under pressure because they feel like they can't keep up, or they know that they're not able to get things, or you guys know this, people's true color starts to really show up. You thought somebody would help out, and now you find out they're not willing to do that. And then, of course, all of this creates more turnover, because it's likely that you're going to have more labor issues when people are feeling overworked and stressed. So it's a big issue. So what I want to describe to you this evening is a 3-step process. And I want you to think about it that way, as a 3-step process. Each step of the process helps you decide who's the best candidate, and it helps you to know that you're hiring the right person for the job. Because we don't want to end up with somebody in the job that you realize, I can't train this person, or this person doesn't have the skills that I thought that they had. And now we've got a whole nother problem going on there. So I look at it as a very simple 3-step process. The first step is screening. The second step is the interview and skills assessment. And then the third step is onboarding. And a lot of what I want to talk to you about in completing these 3 steps is the organization that goes around with it, so that you always know who you're talking to and what it is that you want to talk to them about. If you're like me, after you've talked to 3 or 4 people, you start to forget who said what, or who had what skill, or where did they work, what was their background. So I do have a lot of forms that I'll show you that'll help just keep you organized as you go along. So let's start with the screening. The screening is a part of the process that helps you prepare to know who you want to interview. And as you get ready for the screening, you've got to define the job. And one thing I like about when you do have some turnover is it does help you to start thinking about, well, who do I want in this job? Who do I want in this job? And what do I want those people to do? How do I want to get this done? So what you're thinking of is in defining the job is, I want to help you avoid the number one mistake that dentists make. They hire for fit and attitude, or I want you to hire for fit and attitude, not skills and experience. There isn't anything in a dental office that we couldn't teach somebody who's got a good attitude and is ready to work. So really what you want to do is hire for what you can't train. A lot of times we feel like, oh, this person has all the perfect skills, but they can't get along with anybody. And so now we have another problem on our hands. You got to give consideration to the culture of your office. Are you easygoing or formal? So if somebody's very, very quiet and you guys like to crack jokes, maybe this person's not going to fit in with your office. You've got to evaluate your pay scale to make sure that you're competitive. This is a rapidly changing market, and so you need to know whether you're competitive or not. And take a look at the benefits that you're offering to make sure that you're also competitive. A lot of people are going out of their way to attract people into their office through benefits and extra pay. And so you also have to look at what training are you willing to provide or pay for. Will you send them to a class? Will you have them train on their own? Do you have somebody in the office who can do it for you? It seems to me like we always want to avoid having to train somebody. But the reality is the best way to get people to do the things we want them to do is if we just train them ourselves, you know? But you've got to take all that into consideration when you're starting to select people. And then, of course, what type of skills or experience are going to be necessary? You have to really know that when you're talking to somebody, because it may be too late after you hire them that you don't have the skills that we thought that you had, or the skills that you do have aren't relevant anymore and don't fit in with what we're looking for. I talked about pay scale. And so since I opened up that can of worms, everybody usually asks, well, what can we afford to pay? And I'm glad this is a webinar, so you can't throw tomatoes at me, but I'll tell you what I know you can afford to pay. When I'm doing budgeting with clients that we work with at the Academy, we reserve 20% of net collections for the staff. And the way that gets divided is if you have one hygienist, your front office is going to run about 8% of your net collections. Your assistants are going to be about 6%, and your hygienist will then be about 6%. If you have two hygienists, the formula changes a little bit because of the extra revenue that the hygienists generate. It lowers the cost at the front desk, but because of the higher wages that the hygienists get, their wages go up a little bit. It's still 20%, but it changes. The front office will go down to 6. The hygienist will go up to 8, but it's still 20% of net collections. That's what you could afford for gross wages. On top of that, you do have another 2% for payroll taxes, and then you have another 3% for your fringe benefits. So your total compensation to your staff would be 25%. It's what you can afford. We talk about this in other courses, but it always comes up in this one. When you're considering benefits, I think some of the typical ones that are most common are holiday, vacation, wellness, or personal days, dentistry with a family discount, uniforms, continuing education, retirement savings, health insurance, childcare supplement, and of course, maybe life or disability insurance for some of the other professionals. I would say that the most common are right here. These are the ones that will probably keep you in the most competitive stature when people are looking for a job. This is what they tend to be looking for, but you know what goes on in your area. Again, how much do you have to spend? You have 3% of your net collections to spend on benefits. But if you had a package like this, it would seem to me that you would be pretty competitive with those in the area. Along with the preparation, you know, you've got to have a job description. People always hate the idea of having to write things down, but I like it when it's written down because people can look at it and they can tell you, I'm willing to do these things, or I'm not willing to do these things. Or maybe they could identify for you, I don't know how to do some of these things. And then you have to decide, well, what is my ability to be able to train this person so that they can do the job? At any rate, the job description should be up to date and reflect what the employee will actually do. Job descriptions are moving targets. They change all the time. But I like to start the conversation with the job description because it's easy. It's in front of them. They can look at it. You know, you should think of your job description like a recipe or a blueprint. If somebody didn't know what they needed to do, well, take a look at your job description. Are you doing all the things that are listed there? I would have every position included. So your business office, your hygienist, your dental assistants, I would have one for each one of them. And I like it because it's a good communication tool. It also sets expectations. What I mean by a communication tool is what is it that we decided when you were hired? What kind of tasks were you supposed to be doing? You know, sometimes you have two staffs who are going back and forth with each other because in my old office, somebody used to do something, but you don't do that over here. And it's because in our office, somebody else does that. Let's look at the job description so that you know what it was that we were expecting of you. So we also want to make sure that our job descriptions are ADA, Americans with Disability Act compliant. We want to make sure that is done as well. And I'll show you some examples of how you can do that with your job description. So the job description should always have the position, what will this person be doing? What's their job classification? I will tell you very quickly, all positions, including the hygienist in a dental practice, are all considered non-exempt by the Department of Labor. So that makes it easy. That just means they're all paid by the hour. And if they work over 40 hours in a work week, unless your state says differently, like California, then you will pay them overtime. But they have to have a record of their hours, and they're paid by the hour, and their overtime is based on that. Should have a position description of what they do. Any physical requirements. Again, you've got to be able to stand, sit down, bend over, hold a position for a long period of time. Good vision, hearing is needed in your daily work. Those physical requirements should be listed there, because in the event that somebody can't do these things, then it's like, well, the job requires that you be able to sit or stand or whatever. And if you can't do that, then we may not be able to continue to keep you hired here. You'd also let them know of any particular hazards so that they're aware of it. Any specifications about experience or degrees that they might need should be listed there. And then, of course, the objectives. What is it that I need you to be able to do when you're on this job? And of course, I like to always add in that I'd like you to be able to maintain an outgoing, friendly attitude with patients and staff, even under pressure. The ability to work with interruptions and manage multiple priorities. So I'm putting that objective right there in the position description. So when they say, wow, there's a lot that's going on here, or that person really just got under my skin, I'm like, well, if you recall from our interview, we had talked about how I still needed you to be cheerful, Charlie, you know what I mean? And put on a good face for those people. So when you're looking at the actual task assignments for the position, I like the duties to be defined by category. So for this particular position, there's treatment coordinator duties, there's office administrator duties, and there's business office administration. And so I like to just list them all like that. So it's very easy for the person to refer back to that information. But I like all the tasks of what they do in each category very clearly listed and not complicated. Don't confuse the job description for a procedures manual. A job description is what you do. A procedures manual is how do you accomplish that. So there are two different kinds of documents, and you should have both in your office. And so along with that, having a good job description if you needed it, it does provide a good legal defense. It helps you to write an ad for the position. It helps to develop interview questions, and I'll show you how we put all these things together. It also allows the applicant to verify that they understand the job duties. Again, one of the biggest frustrations that I see with doctors that are hiring staff is that the person doesn't have the skills, or the skills we thought they had don't match up with what we need them to do. And of course, it can include team performance skills that are necessary. Again, being cheerful, your ability to get along with one another, those are really important, because we've all run into situations where we have a highly technical, highly skilled individual who can really do their job, except every day they walk into the office, they just suck all the air out of the room. And so you know what I'm talking about. And so it's kind of like, how could I have such a great technical employee, but one that's just so difficult to get along with? So that's why I like team performance skills that are there. So what I want you to start thinking about, and you might just make a note for yourself, is list 10 specific skills that are necessary for each position in your office. Write that down on a piece of paper, because you want to make sure that you know that at least these 10 specific skills are in your job description. But you'll also need them when you're writing an ad or when you're interviewing somebody to talk to them about the skills that they possessed. Of course, don't forget team performance. I put things in there about their professional appearance and their adaptability to change and taking on an active role in staff meetings. These are areas that I find that we get ourselves into a lot of trouble because they're really good about this, but they showed up with a snake tattoo around their eyes and it went across their neck. And now kids are scared and screaming, when this assistant walks into the room. So we talk about these things. I also like to put in there about their team performance, about avoidance of subgrouping and gossip, and so we talk to them about talk to the person who is uh, can make the change, not other people. So if you're talking about somebody that's not in present, then all you're doing is raising the stress level of this other person, and you're not getting the problem solved. And so we ask people not to talk about things that are related to their job with other people who can't help them. It's kind of like wrestling with pigs. Everybody gets dirty, but the pigs like it. But it doesn't help us. So if you begin the process, you might consider, where do you want to recruit? Internally, externally? A lot of my wife has a medical practice here in Atlanta, and she has 15 employees and 3 associates. So we're kind of always looking for people. She tends to hire a lot of students who are getting ready to either go into medical school or maybe they're doing a gap year, because we really promote education. But we also like working with them because technically they can do jobs really well. They're usually in a good mood because they're learning something. The problem is they don't stay with us very long. So for us, it's been a mixed bag. Um, we've done really well internally, and we've also done well externally. But I'll talk to you about what I mean by those things. Internally, current or other employees, again, we work with a lot of students, so students tend to know other students. You know what I mean? Who could really benefit from the kind of job that we could offer. So we always let the other students who are in our office know about an opening. Patients, sometimes it's been a mixed bag for us, but a lot of times they know somebody who could do really, really well in a dental office. Vendors and sales reps, well, they kind of know what's going on around town. My experience is a lot of times they know the people who are in a bad mood. you know. But every now and then, if they know you really well and they know how your office is running, many times they know of somebody who is unhappy, who really just got themselves into the wrong practice. You know what I mean? They didn't really think things through. And so sometimes they know. One big thing that's helped us a lot is just networking with other colleagues. That has really, really helped a lot. Like letting other physicians know that we're looking for something, letting other professors who teach students know that we're looking. We've had a lot of success in that area. Um, Externally, I looked on YouTube and I saw this dentist. He was doing his own commercial, Thrive Dental and Orthodontics, and Dr. Nathan wants to hire you. So he did a video and he put it on YouTube. Then he could post it on Facebook. But he walked around his office and he talked about the staff and where you'd be working and what it would be like to work here and all that. So I give him a lot of credit, that he was willing to go the extra effort to promote himself and his practice to any potential candidate that might be there. Here's another dentist that she was using some postings in LinkedIn, and she was using Facebook and all that, where she's talking about all the different positions that she has available. She's just going wherever people are. If they're on YouTube, if they're on Facebook, if they're on LinkedIn, if they're on Instagram, she's putting it everywhere. And so she's letting people know, I'm hiring. You never know who is going to see those things because you never know where they're looking. So I think that you always have to consider internal and external places. Externally, We've had really good luck, I know, for my own dental clients at a site called dentalpost.net. It's exclusive to dentistry, and we've had some good success there. We've had a lot of good success getting resumes from Indeed. Not always the best qualified people. You get a lot of volume, and so you have to narrow that down. But we have found people from Indeed. Technical schools, colleges, and universities, that's my go-to. If there is a technical school, a college, or a university that has maybe hospitality courses, they're great at the business office when they haven't gotten a job yet in a hotel or wherever they're studying. If it's a pre-med type of course or they teach science, a lot of times those colleges, those professors know somebody. My wife had to drive down to Georgia State University. They have a pre-med program there, and she met personally with one of the professors. They're not all in the mood to talk to you, so we ignore that. We go with the believers. We work with the one who wants to work with us, and this gentleman has always sent us some great people over the years. Now he's retired. So again, but we had to go to him and say, you're retiring, but the person who's taking your place, they know students like you did who are looking for a job in a gap year or while they're waiting for something or other. And he said, of course. And it's like, well, do you mind making the introduction? Of course he didn't mind. And so now we've got another person who's referring to us. I don't have a problem with placement services, but my rule about them is they're going to look in the same places that you're looking. They actually do the same thing. But if you can find exactly what you're looking for and they can send it to you, then it's worth the fee that they might send you. But you have to remember, sometimes they don't screen them as well as they should, and they just send anything to the office hoping something might stick. But if you can find exactly what you want, so I'd be very particular with them about who they send over. But if you can get what you want, it would be worth it. I've had better luck at job fairs here in Atlanta. There's some really big churches, and one of them has a job fair once a month. I mean, it's attended like by over 150 people. There's some fellowship. They have a small meal for them. And then there's usually maybe 40 or 50 vendors with tables and representatives from their company. And we've gone and we've met some people there. And another place where we've had some good success is with human resource directors. Again, if you go to, like for an assistant, if you go to like a regional health center, not a big hospital, but a regional health center or even a hospital, but go talk to the human resource director. Tell them what you're looking for. A lot of times they know of somebody who didn't fit in there or couldn't work the hours that they had available, but they realized like, oh, this person would fit in really well with in a dental practice. We use the same philosophy with again, looking for a dental assistant. If there's light industry in your town, not steel mines, not automobile manufacturing or coal mines or anything like that. I'm talking about like electronics, where precision is really, really important. Plastics, light industry. A lot of times those human resource directors will know somebody that for whatever reason, it wasn't a good fit for them to hire, or this person couldn't stay on board, but they know somebody who would really do well in a dental practice. And so they've sent some good people. So I'm trying to just give you some ideas. We don't have to just do a post and then hope we get the right person. Do a little bit of legwork on your own. I'm a big proponent of networking. Of course, when you're posting, there's a lot of debate about what to put in an ad. I like it to be simple, easy to read, and very specific to what I'm looking for. So we say dental assistant, full-time. We're looking for a mature professional with 3 years of dental office experience to work in our general dental practice located in Atlanta. We tell them exactly where we are, maybe near one of the local malls or whatever. We're dedicated to quality care and developing our team. Responsibilities, see, this is why you needed to know what you wanted them to do. Responsibilities to include digital radiography, photography, and digital model work. If those are specific skills you want them to have, put it right in there. experience with Dentrix or whatever your practice management software is, and expanded duties, a plus. Call Sally. We're looking to see if they can follow instructions. So Sally is our code name for in somebody who's looking for an interview. And we want them to call between certain hours. Again, can they pay attention to instructions between 11 and 3 to arrange an interview, or email your resume for consideration? Great salary and benefits. We kind of list those are available for the right person. Again, there's a lot of debate. Should you put your salary range there? Today, sometimes that helps. Sometimes it only attracts the people who are attracted to the dollar. We're in a much different kind of environment. If you're not getting any bites at all on your posting and it doesn't list the salary, then obviously probably listing it in a range, I think, would help. If you have your salary and you're not getting any bites, that might be your tip off that it's too low. I would look at some other posting and see what wages are they posting and things like that to be more competitive. So when you start getting phone calls and you start getting resumes and things like that, think of it as an elimination versus a selection, because you want to consider what would eliminate somebody from consideration. When you're looking at a stack of resumes, you can't think of like, well, out of this whole big bunch here, who's the perfect person? That's too hard. But it's much easier to say, this is not a good fit. That one's not a good fit, because it's kind of like, looking for a needle in a haystack. It gets very, very difficult. So if I go back to what I said earlier, if you know what skills you want them to have, if you know what experience they have to have, then as you're going through resumes, as soon as you see they don't have these skills, they don't have that experience, I'm eliminating. So you really just pare it down to a few resumes. You might get 60 or 70, but you're only going to end up with maybe 8 or 10. And so 8 or 10, it's a lot easier to evaluate, does this person have the right skills and experience that I'm looking for? But you can't do that with 80 people. So just eliminate the biggest bulk of them. A lot of this is all computer generated. So many times the person didn't even know their resume was being forwarded to you. So we always evaluate the resume. We want to make sure when we're looking at it that if there's gaps in time, we want to know, how did this person keep up their skills? Can they explain why? Sometimes they're taking care of sick relatives. Okay. Sometimes they stayed home to raise children. We can understand that. Again, but how did you keep up your skills then when you were doing these things? We also want to know if their skills are relative to our practice needs. So if we're looking for somebody who has a lot of skills, but do we need a high-tech person, or do we need somebody who's a little bit more customer service oriented? What we're looking for is, are their skills relative to the practice needs? And again, you can't do this for 70 or 80 resumes, but you could do it for 8 or 10. You could do that when you're looking at, who is it that you want to actually call back. So we're always looking for that kind of information. There are some red flags. I'm not going to go through each one of them. Basically, all of these statistics are about people who are dishonest about what they put on their resume. It's kind of sad, but it's the state of the world that we live in. People, I'll just say, embellish what's there. And so some big red flags is obviously poor spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Total elimination. If you can't spell check or verify what you've given us, we already know it's going to be a problem in all of our progress notes and all that. If they can't follow directions, again, if we said send a resume, if we said send a cover letter, whatever, and they didn't do it, we know you're not going to be able to fit in here. If there's no customization about how my skills fit in with what I'm looking for in your office or what they're looking for, we know this person probably won't fit in. They're the famous unexplained unemployment gaps. If there's vague job descriptions with no responsibilities listed, like supervised team, but didn't say specifically what was it, that they did. I want to know the responsibilities. Did you hire? Did you fire? Did you train? What is it? What were the responsibilities? If they had a lot of career changes, they went from making baskets to working in a restaurant to a zoo. Now they want to work in a dental practice. I'm a little bit nervous there. I'm also worried that they may have a lot of years of experience, maybe 5 years, but it was in 9 offices. And so in my book, you don't really have any experience because you weren't anywhere long enough to know what this person can do. We probably shouldn't look at their social media presence, but I can't stop the staff from doing it. They do it anyway. And if they see things that don't fit in with the way that they like to conduct themselves, it's going to create a problem. And I won't even get into what we've seen. And of course, if they've got a really strange kind of unprofessional email address, it's usually a warning sign for me, like, sexy body, at loveyou.com. It's probably not going to work out here. So we look at the resumes to decide who we want to contact. And that brings us to the interview and skills assessment segment here. And so I know a lot of times you probably feel like, I wish I could just, get people hooked up to a lie detector test, and there's ways that we can get around when people aren't entirely telling us the truth. Number one, we do screen the applicants on the telephone to qualify their skills and or experience. And we use a form to evaluate the things that they told us. When we're screening them on the phone, we're just trying to find out, can we get along with them? Did this person have a good attitude? Did they go someplace quiet when they knew they had to sit down and talk with us? Were they articulate? Could they enunciate correctly? Was it easy? Did we feel like, oh, I could get along with this person? That's what we're looking for when we screen them on the phone. But if they pass that test, they have the skills, they have the experience, and they kind of have that likability factor, then we invite them in for an interview. I know when we're interviewing with people, if they're perfect and everybody else is a problem, we know we're probably going to have a red flag here. And if that application or resume is just too perfect, they love everything, they love everybody, we know that's not true either. So we look for those things. There are some legal pitfalls that you have to be aware of, but they're simple to avoid. Very, very simple. Number one, what you want to do is focus on questions related to job responsibilities. Notice how I keep going back to that job description and how much it will help you know what to talk with people. Because if it's not related to the job, there's no reason to bring it up. Develop clear job descriptions so that you could show them, these are the responsibilities that you're going to have. And we want to know that you're okay with it. Also make clear notes and document all your interviews and all of that. And of course, you want to establish performance evaluation standards and clearly define measurable results. State how much, how soon, how often. Again, I think these are important with your job description because let's say, for instance, you're talking to a hygienist and you say, in our office, the established standard is that an FMX will be taken in, I'm just going to say 10 minutes. And we want to know how that fits in with your prior experience. And they're like, oh, well, in my old job, I always had an extra half an hour if I had an FMX. Can you see where I'm going? I'm talking about something specific to the job here. We're expecting that you're going to be able to do it in 10 minutes. You're telling me that you need 30 minutes to do it. This may not be a good fit for your office. And again, I'm just using this as an example, but I wanted you to see how easily it would be for you to pick this out. Because if you hired this person because she knows how to take an FMX, only to find out she never takes one because you don't give her an extra half an hour, you see the problem that you have. So some things that you don't want to do is ask questions that lead to age, race or color, religion, national origin, gender, anything like that. A simple example would be Larry Guzzardo, Larry sounds English, but Guzzardo doesn't. You know what I mean? Like that is kind of leading toward, you know what I mean, your national origin or whatever. You know, you speak English really well for somebody who doesn't have a name that sounds American. You know, unless the job requires that you be bilingual, it's just best just to leave it out. Um, I wouldn't ask about a marital status or their number of dependents. It's not pertinent to the job. Again, their native language. If a person's been arrested, some states actually have this ban the box, they call that type of regulation, where you can't ask if you've been arrested or not. I know Georgia doesn't have that requirement. Florida doesn't. I know Colorado does, but you need to check. But again, whether they were arrested or not, does it really have anything to do with the job? Probably not. And you probably don't have to ask it anyway. Some states also prohibit asking wage rate history. Georgia's not one of them. I know Florida's not one of them. I know that Massachusetts is. I believe Colorado is, and so is California. It's easy to look it up in your state. So you just don't want to get in trouble with the Department of Labor by asking questions that the state says that you shouldn't be asking. I wouldn't ask about ownership of a car, but you can ask them if they have reliable transportation. You could also ask them, you know, we start our morning huddle at 6:45 a.m. Our first appointment is at 7. Do you see any reason why you wouldn't be able to make it at 6:45 promptly every morning? Now they may say, oh, well, my husband beats me or my spouse beats me if I don't have breakfast on the table, or I've got 19 kids and they all need breakfast and I leave 3 of them on the curb. And you know what I mean? They may offer some information, but that's if they bring it up. You shouldn't be bringing it up. And of course, I wouldn't question about any physical disability unless the disability would interfere with their work performance. You know what I mean? But again, if we ask about job-related questions, you and I are going to need to engage as a dental assistant here in four-handed dentistry to pass the instruments. Do you see anything that might keep you from being able to participate in four-handed dentistry? Just ask a question about what you need them to do, and then they'll tell you. Now, they might lie, but we have a way to get around that. So it's simple. Topics not considered job related are taboo. Just stick to the job, not anything else, and you're going to be okay. So there are things that you actually can ask. You can ask about credentials. Tell me about this degree. Tell me about this studying that you did. Or you could ask about experience. Tell me about your ability to pour up a model or to scan models or to upload a file or whatever it is. You can always ask about experience that they need. So ask them, tell me about your qualifications for this position. What qualifies you for it? What prior experience makes you well suited for this job? Let them talk to you about what they've done in the past. I noticed that you were asking for somebody to do photography. And not only do I take photography, and I can show you some pictures in the office, but I'm kind of a hobbyist when it comes to photography. You know what I mean? Just again, let them talk and ask them, describe to me what attracted you to this position. You know, how it is working here going to help you in the short term, in the long term, because we want to know if there's going to be a good fit here for this person. You can also ask questions, and I like these a lot. You can always ask opinion questions. In your opinion, like for instance, if you want all of your patients to have fluoride, I'd ask, in your opinion, what do you think of fluoride? Again, it's a benign question. I just want to hear the person's answer. But if you think everybody should have fluoride and this person says, well, I think that causes brain cancer, then you know what I mean? It might not be a good fit for you, because I'm wondering what else do you think that we do here creates a hardship on a patient. But in your opinion, what do you think? In your opinion, what do you consider the best whitening system? Let them talk. They're going to teach you about how they make opinions and what research they look at and things like that. What would have made your previous office a better place to work in your opinion? I just want to hear what you have to say. These are safe questions for you to ask somebody. The other distinction I want to make about what you can ask is behavior versus situational questions. And I want to make a distinction here because we happen to always ask behavioral questions. And the problem with a behavioral question is they have this perceived correct answer. You know, if you ask them, are you motivated, a hard worker? Do you get along with others? Of course, they're going to say, oh, I love life and I love people. And oh my God, I'm usually the first one there and the last one to leave. And I love everybody. And you're thinking, oh my God, I got it made in the shade. I got to go ahead and hire this person. Because anybody knows if somebody asks me, are you motivated? And I go, no, I could barely get out of bed in the morning. Am I going to get that job? You see, people know that type of question has a specific answer and they better give it because they won't be put up for further consideration. So I want to help you get all the behavioral questions out of your list of questions that you might ask because you think, oh my God, I hit the mother lode. Let's get this person hired today, only to find out this person can't do any of the things that they need you to do. What's safer to ask, in my opinion, and my experience, is situational questions because these provide insight to past performance. So I would always ask them, tell me about a time when you took pictures or you had to learn something new or something, again, that's specific to the situations in your office, like the tasks in your office. You know, tell me about a time when you had to take a picture and this person had a big tongue, you know, that was in the way. Whatever it was, tell me about this from the past. How did you handle it? And what was the outcome? And then finally, who can I contact to verify what you've told me? Just because they said they could do it doesn't mean that they actually can. It also doesn't mean that they can do it in the way that you want them to be able to perform the job. I also don't want you to worry if you say to them, and again, I'll just use an example, you know, tell me in the past when you took pictures, you know, or when you took radiographs. And they say, well, gosh, you know, the doctor that I worked for, he had a dip tank. And so I never had the opportunity to learn how to do digital radiography. I've always been interested in it, but I never had a chance to do it. It doesn't mean that this would automatically disqualify this person because it's not their fault their boss is still on a pegboard and doesn't use a computer in the office. But what you have to start to evaluate is, okay, you don't have any experience with this, but now I need to evaluate your ability to learn. So now I want to ask questions when you've had to learn something new, and it sounds like maybe you never did. So if you don't know computers, you don't know digital radiography, again, you have to start to evaluate how will you make this move into a very high tech office like we have. So you see how I'm using the job description, specific situations that you run into in your office. I'm relating them all together, and it's helping me decide how could I work with this person. So we always consider professional image. Today, I think it's very important because what is professional has a big, wide description, and you might have a very narrow one. So we always do evaluate everyone's professional image. Again, we have to be careful because particularly in my wife's office, hair is always pulled back. Makeup is very, very light. Nails are trimmed, things like that. So we don't wear a lot of jewelry, but sometimes people show up and they're today, you know, they're all done up. I don't think that that's a problem, but we do say to the staff member or to the candidate, we say, gosh, we noticed that you got all dressed up to come for the interview, and we think that's great. We did want to let you know that in our office, the hair is pulled back. Makeup is very, very light, no eyelashes, you know, anything like that. Nails are trimmed very, very short, neutral color, whatever it is. And so we like your experience and things like that, but we also want to know that you're okay with our uniform policy and the image that we want to project. Most of the time, people have said, "Oh, I'm glad I don't have to do all that," and I'm fine with it. And we have had times, not many, but we've had times when they're like, nope, if I can't have all those pins in my ear or whatever it is through my nose, like they hang for a cow, that ring, they've said, no, we're not taking it out. And we're like, well, we understand, but our patients will go bananas if they see somebody. We don't say that to them, but you know where I'm going. But we ask them, we see that you got all dressed up. We think that's great. However, in our work environment, we do this, and we just want to make sure that you're okay with that. If they give us the go ahead, we know we can start to go further with them. So to help you out with this, write a little note for yourself. What are 5 common situations for each position in your office, and write a question. And the question should be, tell me about a time in your past experience of working when you had to do X. How did that work out? How did you approach that when somebody tried to cancel at the last minute, or somebody showed up and they didn't have their payment with them? Tell me what you did. It gives you some idea of how they're going to handle things in the future in your practice. We also check references, and I will tell every single one of you listening today, every single person that you consider hiring, you have to check references. Today, I'll just tell you it's dangerous not to do it. Go back to what I said about all those red flags and how people embellish their resumes. You can't go by exactly what they say there, and even what they tell you. People will make things up. And so you want to do a reference check. So we have a form that we use to contact the person. And so we let the individual know that so-and-so has applied for a position in our office and told me some things about their prior experience. And we'd like to verify that with you. And so everybody, anywhere, everywhere can ask questions about things that an employee or a candidate told you. Sometimes I'll argue with people, and I'm like, look, if you feel like you can't ask a question, then don't ask it. But I know in all 50 states, you can ask about things that someone has told you. Larry told me he knows how to take out the garbage and place it in the bin at the back of the parking lot. And I just want to verify that experience with you. What was your opinion about how well Larry did that? You know what I mean? If I told you, you can verify it with somebody. So the person who interviewed the applicant, we usually have them call the reference. You've got to speak to a dentist. It cannot be an employee. It cannot be an associate who did not supervise them. It's got to be the owner. It has to be a dentist. You've got to know who you're calling to avoid impersonators, because, again, people will mislead you by saying that, yeah, I was her supervisor and all of that. And so you always want to begin by verifying exact employment dates, their attendance record, and their position, even their salary history, if you think that that's important. There's people who say, I worked there from December 20, or I just worked there from 24 to 25. So it looks like, oh, they were there for a year. But the reality is they started in December of 24 and they quit in January of 25. So yeah, they were there one month, not 1 year. So I was like, I want to verify this with you. She told me, or he told me, they worked in your office from this day to that date, and that they had very minimal downtime, whatever it was that they told you. Be objective. People always feel uncomfortable when they're giving out this information. So try not to read into somebody's tone of voice, or if they're too silent or whatever. I would be cautious regarding the validity of comments by former employers. Some of them are upset when somebody is leaving. So you want to ask very objective and specific questions about the job performance. And the person may have told you, I don't think this person follows the rules the way that they should, and so I wanted to get out of there. Or they may feel like, we had a new owner come in and I just don't like the change, and that's why I'm moving on. So they may not like it that you're doing this. So that's what I'm saying is try to be cautious and objective about it. Don't assume a personality clash was the employee's fault, because it isn't always their problem. Always get an explanation if the reference stated the employee was fired. what's going on there. When you talk to the employee, you can say, I found out something that you didn't mention to me. My sense is you know what it is, and I'm wondering if you want to explain it to me. To get this person to kind of tell you really what was going on here and find out their side of the story. That's why if you get a negative reference, I would allow them an opportunity for a rebuttal, particularly today, because people do get upset when they find that somebody's leaving for whatever reason. And when possible, I would check with at least 2 to 3 references to rule out subjectivity. One reference just really isn't enough. I like some more if it's possible. And then, of course, I always like to ask if you'd rehire this person. If they wouldn't rehire them and that wasn't a part of their staff policy, that could be a red flag. Or if you ask, would you rehire this person? And they're like, no, 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 oh, no, 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 no. They wouldn't answer any other question, but they're really emphatic about the rehire question. They might be sending you a message that I don't think you should hire this person either. Something that's helped us out a lot is I put this reference verification form together. Kind of looks like their job description. And what I would do is I ask the staff member, how do they think each of their former employers will rate them in some specific areas? It's not their whole job description, but just some very specific areas. And I ask them to rate themselves. And so when I'm talking to the reference, I can say specifically, well, he or she told me that she excels in her performance in this task. And I wanted to know your opinion of what she thought, how well she did it. And then I let them talk. Getting references is a big part of it. I don't like to lose a candidate that I think can do a really good job in the office, but I also don't like hiring somebody only to find out I've been duped, because if I would have called the other reference, I would have learned about all the other problems that this person causes. So in my wife's office, we have everybody do a skills assessment. They do it for 3 days in her office. I work with a client in Texas. He has them do it for 5 days. But what we want to do is have them come in and actually observe and see what we do to see how well that fits in with what they like to do and how they like to get things done. We find that after 3 days, we know whether they can do it or not. So when you bring somebody else in for a skills assessment period, it can't replace an employee. So you can't treat them like a temporary, and they can't be doing productive work if they're just observing. But I will tell you, in my wife's office, we actually, if they have to answer the phone, we say, sit here. We'll show you how we want you to do this, and we let them answer the phone. So we actually let them work in the office, and because of it, we do compensate them. We tell them, in consideration for your time, we negotiate an hourly rate for everybody who's doing a skills assessment. But we actually pay them because we want to know if you know how to use the computer, if you can take vital signs, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, we want to see how well you can do that. And so we make them go through a 3-day skills assessment period. Sometimes we know after the first day it's not going to work. Sometimes it takes to the third. Sometimes we know after the first day, we want you and we're ready to make an offer. But my point is we want to see if they can actually do it. If you're not going to have them do any work, just remember they can't replace an employee or do productive work unless they're compensated for it. So for that reason, if they're just observing, usually just a couple of hours or maybe the morning is enough just to get a feel for the office and all of that. And then I would have them document, that's why we have them sign this form, that their participation is voluntary and that it's not a promise of a job, so they can't say that they actually worked here for unemployment purposes. But the skills assessment really helps us out a lot because, again, we've had people say they can hang the moon. And when they came to the office and we asked them to do that, we saw that they were all thumbs and they couldn't get it done. Every new hire gets a new hire offer letter. It's very, very frustrating when they thought you meant something different than you thought you meant. So we put it in writing, just like a job description. I like to have it in writing because it's easy to verify. And if there's a question later, I have a simple answer. We are going to do whatever we promised you. Let's look at your offer letter and see what was listed there. So to avoid confusion, we always put the start date and the position so they know when it is. We always list their rate of pay, what they're going to be earning, when they come in to the office. We always list the hours that they'll generally be working. We list that their first 90 days is an introductory period, and we're going to be providing them with some very specific training. There's some certain things that you have to learn, and so we list them right there. This is also called hiring people on condition. I'll hire you, and it's under the condition that you learn how to do four-handed dentistry, that you learn how to upload files, that you learn digital radiography. But if you can do these things, then after 90 days, we'll make you a regular employee. We put it right in the letter when their first performance evaluation will be and when their first salary review. They're not the same thing in our office. Performance reviews about how well they do their job. Salary review is about their money. They're not the same. And we do them at different times. So we put it in there, but there's always a lot of confusion. So I'm glad it was in writing. I also list out the benefits that they'll be eligible for. And so we want to make sure that it's all there, it's in writing. And I love it when I can say, we will absolutely do whatever we promised you. Let's look at your offer letter, and we get that out. So before they get started, we always like to have an ambassador who will be the person's buddy. This may not be the person who's going to be doing the training, but this is the person that is going to make sure they know where to hang their purse, where to put their coat, where the staff restroom is, where they can have lunch, those types of things. It should be a coworker, not a manager, and it doesn't have to be the person who's doing the training. We show them where they're going to be working. We like to sometimes send that to them with a picture, hey, we're excited that you're coming on board. And we're excited to have you work in this treatment room or whatever. And so we always like them to come in and do their orientation before their first day. It's a little bit of pre-boarding, because we know if they start to get excited about where they're going to be working, they get really, really curious about how nice it really will be. And we know when they're curious, they get committed, they show up. We don't want to have one of those situations go on. So we try to get them involved as much as we can with whatever we're doing in the office. Maybe invite them to a staff meeting, or if there's a training session that we're doing that we hope they could be a part of, we'll invite them. And again, I'll include those hours when we do pay them, and make sure that they're paid for it. We also like to give them a little gift box, like our office coffee mug, and we do have T-shirts for everybody. They can't wear them at work, but they can wear them other places. But anyway, we send it to them in advance, and everybody signs it, and so it just makes this new person feel like, oh, I can't wait to be able to spend every day with this team. We also try to get most paperwork completed, all those forms, I-9 forms, general employment forms, all that stuff. Get it all done so the first day isn't like filled out filling forms. And then we do send, like I say, an email, because we want them to be able to engage with some of the staff members before they get started. Because we know if they start to develop rapport with one another, they're probably going to get along better, and they're more likely going to show up, for that job. So we try to involve them when we can. So onboarding is the last part of it. And what I'll say there is you should always have a training schedule for these employees. I think the doctor should explain their philosophy of care. Again, explain to them how meetings is what we do to transfer training experiences to the new office. Because we like to explain to them that we know that you have energy and ideas and creativity. That's why we hired you. And we wanted you to know that we want you to keep a list of things that you think we should be doing differently. But remember, we can't change while we're training you, but we do want to know what you think about what we do, but not while we're training you. So we just let them know, keep a note of all that. We are experienced resources, and so we work with each other. And we want to encourage them to openly discuss any questions or concerns. And then, of course, they can complete forms and learn everybody else's job descriptions. But we review the training schedule. The training schedule tells them this is what you need to learn, and this is the order that we want to teach it to you in. So there's not a lot of confusion. And then we want them to individually meet with each team member. We know if they meet with each other individually, they're going to bond on their own terms, and that's going to be a strong bond, which will make them feel like they're a member of the team. So we have a new employee checklist for all the new people who come on board. The doctor does have a role here in all of this. I like them to be the person who greets the new person, because emotionally they want to feel that they fit in, and emotionally we want them to feel like the doctor is on their side. You all know more than likely if there's a problem with a new employee, it's probably because two staff members were butting heads. And we want this new person to know, I will step in and have your back if somebody's not showing you what they should be showing you, or if they're not being clear about it. And so I tell the doctor that you should plan to meet them every night for about 10 minutes before they go home for the first 2 weeks, just to say, how are things going? Tell me how you're doing with your training. What questions can I answer for you? At that point, if there's things that you want them to change, it's really easy to get them to change in the beginning. But once they develop a bad habit in your office and you want them to change 4 or 5 months down the road, or worse, a year down the road, it's not going to happen. It's going to be very difficult for them. So in their introductory period, every night for the first 2 weeks for 10 minutes. And then again, after the first month, the second month, and then the third month, we do an introductory period review. If the person is doing well, we're going to make them a regular employee. Some people might be doing well, but we're not ready to take that next step. So we may say that we're going to extend their introductory period if we have to, or we may say, we notice that we've done our best, you've done your best, it's just not working, and we probably should part ways. And so we are able to start the process again. So I do like you to send them a welcome letter. This is in addition to the offer letter, but something that shows the staff, like, we're looking forward to working with you. We're glad that you decided to join our team. It's really nice. So you want to develop an onboarding and training schedule that covers who will train the new team member on policies, procedures, and protocols. This is sort of like their mentor person who can review with them their training schedule. As you're working with people, and I'm just getting right down to the end here, I think bosses in particular, supervisors or dentists, there are some questions that you probably are afraid to ask, but you need to know the answer to. And so little things like, why do you think we selected you as an employee? Do they realize what we saw in you? Like, what's been going well? What are the highlights of your experiences so far? And tell me about that. These are the things that you want to talk to this person about. Tell me what you don't understand about your job or our practice. Maybe we do things differently here, or we have a different philosophy of care, and maybe it's radically different from where you came from. But we're happy to explain it to you. Compare the practice to what we explained it would be like. Did we do our job in the way that we presented ourselves? Who do you talk to when you have questions about work? Do you feel comfortable asking? These are things that, you know what I mean? You might feel uncomfortable asking them, but you need to know these answers. Does your supervisor or coworker or dentist clearly explain what the practice expects of you? A lot of times the person doesn't fail. We failed in our responsibility. If somebody offers constructive criticism or corrects your work, how does it go? How does it make you feel? Because you want to know if they're doing it correctly. Have you had any uncomfortable situations, conflicts with supervisors or coworkers or patients? Again, these are things that the boss needs to know about, because these are the things that affect the person's emotional state about working in your office. And so anybody who wants a copy of these things, if you want to email me, I'm Larry at larrymguzzardo.com, and I'd be happy to send you a PDF of these slides. Or you can contact the Dawson Academy, or possibly put it in the chat. Dylan will make sure that I get this information. And so again, I find having a checklist, it helps. So I want to make sure that I have all the forms and the file all set up So if I need it, I know that I got it. And so if I've done my job right tonight, uh, I wanted you to recognize how good hiring practices can actually just save you time and money. But you got to make sure that the job descriptions are accurate. You should be able to promote your positions internally and externally. We go both places when we need to. And I will tell you, in today's world, you've got to require a completed and signed employment application, because you want a signature that they said they had this license. You should have a copy of it, but if they said they had a certain amount of training or whatever it is, you want it signed by this person that they told you that they had that. Because if things go sideways and things aren't working out, you want to have cause. You led us to believe that you had a certain skill that we now see that you don't possess. You know what I mean? And remember, it's a process of elimination, not selection. So you could really, if you go through the steps, hire the very best people. You want to focus on fit and attitude, because you could train on skills. And so I want to thank everybody. There's a lot of forms that are involved in all of this. We made most of these up ourselves. They're easy to do, but if you needed a copy, just let us know. I'd be happy to send them to you. And I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. People always ask this, there's a lot more information around all of these subjects. And the Dawson Academy is here. This sounds like a shameless plug, but the Dawson Academy does support dentists and dentistry. We have two very, very specific courses that I lead. Shameless plug here. But we have a Team 360 course. It's complete team training. It's designed for the doctor and the whole staff to work out all the details of scheduling, of communication, teamwork, answering the phone, making financial arrangements, even some marketing. But we have a lot of fun. It's a good time, and we do it all together with the whole team. I also teach with Rachel Carfield, a dental MBA in a day. Our next one will be in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's a great course. I consider it like a professional finance course for the non-financial professional. So I teach it, it's designed to help you understand the business components of your practice, particularly like where your money is going, without having to feel like you need to be a CPA, or even so that you have to rely on your CPA to give you the information. I'll show you how easy it is to do it yourself if you have all the right stuff. So gang, I really appreciate being able to have this time. If there's other questions that anybody has, I'll stay on for a few more minutes. I'm happy to stay on board and answer questions. If you want to call me myself, again, I'm Larry at LarryMGuzzardo.com. You're welcome to give me a call, send me an email, and I'll get back in touch with you.